this counter offer, I've never seen it. And I'm his, Queensberry are his promoters. He is under our promotional banner. I've never seen anything. And according to everybody else who's involved, his management side of that, they've never seen it. So I don't know what this guy's on about. With Tyson, he's a fighter who, with any generation, would be there, be in the top couple in any generation. I don't want to be putting pressure on ourselves. That's why the idea was that we would announce it when we announce it in the venue, etc. Anyway, it's past that now. That's gone. So it's out there, and we're all working hard now to deliver a venue on a date that suits.
All right, welcome to the Lowdown, brought to you by Unibet. I'm Dev Sahni, and joining me today is a man who, if he wanted to, could end my career. It is, of course, Frank Warren. How are you, boss?
I'm all right, mate, but I'm not going to end your career yet. When I get you in the ring, it probably will be again.
Oh, yeah. I seriously do not want that smoke. I actually still fancy you to have me in a fight. I just think you could. But let's...
I'll bring my Zimmer frame with me.
Knock me over the head with it. Let's get right into it. Look, this is a huge fight that everyone is talking about right now. You hear different things from the fighters every day, and everyone just wants to know where it is. So, Frank, where are we with Fury versus Jake Paul?
Oh, Tommy's ready to go. He's chomping at the bit. We've not heard anything from Jake. He's disappeared. He's gone up completely offline about it and everything. So, if he wants to do it, so, as I said, we'll do it in a heartbeat. I doubt very much if he does want to do it.
It does, yeah. It does feel like that. It feels like one of those where he's got a little bit of action from it on Instagram, and now that it started getting a bit real, he's talking about Canelo again and other guys.
It's what they call fake news.
New shows. So Denzel Bentley versus Felix Cash. That's official. Yeah. April 24th. What a fight! Talk to me about it.
Oh, it's a really good fight, and I'm really pleased that Felix is going ahead with the fight, because there was a lot of talk, and certainly his trainer had said that had we won the purse bid, that he was going to pull him out, but he hasn't. So that's great news. I know Denzel's really up for the fight, as is. I've seen that somebody showed me a clip of what Felix had put out, and he's really up for it as well. Mm-hmm. And I learned after we won the purse bid there was a lot of history between them. And they told me that they had some very interesting sparring sessions, both in and outside the ring. So I'm looking forward to seeing us both of them in there on the 24th, because I think we're going to get something a little bit special from them.
From what I hear, half of the stuff that happened in the sparring sessions actually wouldn't be allowed in the ring. So hopefully they saved the good stuff.
And also I hear with the stuff that took place outside of the sparring session.
Goodness me. But Denzel Bentley, though, I mean, he's really thrived in lockdown. It feels like he comes through this one. We've actually created a bit of a star in lockdown.
Well, we have, but he's created, him and Martin Bowers, who trains him, they've created him. I mean, they've really worked hard, and he's really applied himself, and he's taken advantage of of a terrible situation. And he's come through it now, and he's in I think at this stage of his career is quite a defining fight. So if he comes through this one, then it's onwards and upwards, and he can be in a very, very big fight by the end of the year. So, we won the purse bid. We've given him. He's got the opportunity now to really shine even more than he's been doing. I mean, he's a class act, lovely fella. You couldn't be a nicer fella to work with, and I think that, as I say, I think we're going to see something special, and I believe that it'll come through it.
I know look, and forgive me for getting ahead of myself. I always do it, right? But I see Liam Williams going over to Miami, picking up that belt. I see him coming back with the world title. I see Denzel Bentley coming through Felix Cash. Could they collide in the future, Frank?
Why not? I mean, it's a big fight. You mentioned the Miami fight. That fight was ordered by the WBO, and we agreed terms on the day of the purse bids. We just want to get it on. It's, as you mentioned, it's going on in Miami next month. So I'm really, really looking forward for Liam to get his chance. People in the States will underestimate Liam. He's been there twice and fought for titles at light heavyweight. Twice he's fought for the title. And going up a weight, he seems more comfortable. He's certainly more comfortable working with Dominic Ingle. They formed a very strong bond and partnership. And he's just looked brilliant in every fight he's had. He looks better and better each time he gets in the ring. And I think that Andrade this is the worst opponent Andrade could have, in my opinion. The worst opponent he can have. And I think that he's going to be in for a really tough night. And he struggles to make the weight anyway, Andrade. And even if he does, I'm sure in the night he'll come in on weight and so forth. But for me, this is his moment. This is Liam Williams' moment. If he comes through the fight, then, him and Denzel this year, that's a great fight. It's a great all-round, all-British fight.
Yeah, huge fight down the line. And you look at Liam Williams and Demetrius Andrade, do you feel as though if he has taken his eye off the ball at all, if he's skipping a session here and there, if he's talking about doing WWE and things like that, the last person in the world that you want to have in front of you is an animal like Liam Williams?
Well, I think the thing is, at that level, you can't afford to take those days out and sod around. You have to be focused, because if you're professional, be top of your game. Look, come the night of the fight, Andrade, he'll be right. He'll be in there, and it won't be. There will be he won't be putting any excuses in Andrade. He's training hard for this fight. There's no doubt about it. He knows he's got to. But our man's been, as I say, been chomping at the bit. He's been working hard for a long time. I mean, every day I get a text off him saying, Make the match with this guy, make the match with that one. Eubanks called me out. Go and do it. He wants to fight anyone. But now he's got his wish. And this is his moment. I think he's reaching, he's not reaching his peak, but he's not far off getting to the peak of his career now.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what happens April 17th. But back to April 24th. Back home, also, it's not been announced yet, but we're hearing talks about Callum Johnson and also Anthony Yard appearing in separate fights on April the 24th. Looking forward to seeing those guys out?
I am. I want to see them back in action. They want, he's rejoined us, Callum, and Anthony Yard. It'd be great to get Anthony back out again. And as you say, they're on the card and they get a chance to get themselves moving. And what I want to do is get these fellas into big fights, either against each other or big fights over the next few months, providing they come through on the 24th.
Well, a couple of weeks before that, it's just been announced as well that the Joe Smith and Vlasov fight is happening for the vacant WBO light heavyweight title. So the timelines are kind of lining up for someone to get a crack. Well,
there was going to be a final eliminator, as you know, for that title. Between Lyndon Arthur, and unfortunately he had to pull out because he sustained a hand injury and had an operation. He'll be out again at the end of May, early June. But as you say, it's wide open now. It's wide open for one of these guys to fight for that title. But there's some great domestic fights to be made. And if you can throw Buatsi in the mix, we've got chances of doing some good stuff.
We've got Callum Johnson with Queensberry, Anthony Yard, Lyndon Arthur, and Buatsi. He must feel a little bit like he's on the outside looking in terms of domestic.
Well, look, he can be looking in immediately. Let's make some of these fights. These fights are there to be made, and it's great for the fans. And who knows who's going to win? You can roll the dice with all of them. They're good quality fighters, and you'll get some good quality fights out of it. And that's really what it's all about. And the guys are earning some good money fighting each other. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, let's talk about the double header coming up, March 26th and March 27th, Friday and Saturday. Another treat from Frank Warren to boxing fans. Sam Maxwell against Akeem Ennis Brown. This fight wasn't ordered. They want each other. Tell us about this.
Well, that's good, isn't it? They kept banging on about fighting each other, and we've given them their wish. So they're gonna face up to each other over that weekend, and I'm looking forward to it. Sam's a lovely guy, and he's obviously in a hurry now. He's because of his age, he's in a hurry to get the big fights. We've given him another one, and as you say, Ennis Brown, so really a good quality operator. So we're going to see some fireworks there between them two. I think it's a cracking domestic bust up.
It seems like there's already been some fireworks on social media. Akeem Ennis Brown is good friends with Ahara Davis, who him and Sam Maxwell do not get on. There's a bit of history there. And it seems like he's nabbing away at Sam Maxwell every now and again. And then Sam Maxwell says, after I deal with Akeem Ennis Brown, I will deal with Ahara Davis. Could that be in his future, Frank?
Well, you know what? It's another great domestic fight to make. Isn't it? A lot of rivalry there. And these type of fights bring out the best of the guys. Yeah, let the winner fight it.
Brad Foster's back.
He's a quality fighter, Brad. When you look at his pedigree as an amateur, which was zero, he came from being MMA and got into it. And you think he's won the British Commonwealth, got the Lonsdale belt, and he seems to have gone under the radar a bit as far as his achievements are concerned. Because he's done fantastically well. We're supposed to have purse bids for Yafai last week. Yafai pulled out at the purse bids. So this is an important fight for Brad. In Rodriguez, he's got a tough competitor, but if he comes through this again, we can start moving him up. He's very ambitious, and I like him. I genuinely think, there's a lot more in the tank with him. And as I say, to do what he's done with no amateur experience, Lonsdale belt Commonwealth that's pretty good going.
Were you disappointed that Gamal Yafai pulled out of purse bids?
Yeah, I thought they wanted the fight, but obviously that's the case. They're out now. He's pulled himself out, so he don't want it, does he? So that tells you all you need to know.
What about Zach Parker then? Queensberry debut, another new signing. I know you've been busy signing up fighters. Zach Parker, WBO #1. How quickly are you looking to get him his shot at the WBO super middleweight title?
Look, he's not for his doing. He's been inactive, so he's got to fight, and we have to give him another one in between. I want him in a position by sometime at the end of this year that he's actually challenging for the world title. He is the #1, as you say, and should be. So we'll move heaven and earth to ensure he gets his crack at the title.
He's not got an easy fight, by the way. He's got Vaughan Alexander, who's Devon Alexander's older brother, who spent some time in prison and came back. That's right, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah. No, it's a good fight again, isn't it? But if you're world #1, what are you going to do? You're going to have to fight some people. You have to do that. You have to fight decent fighters. Yeah.
Is there a danger that he could end up treading water? When you get to that WBO #1 position, you don't want to lose and then lose your spot and have to climb back up the ladder again.
Well, if you lose, then you lose your spot. It's as simple as that. You've got to win. That's why you're #1. You're a winning fighter. As soon as you lose, you're out of the rating. You're out of that rating. They drop you down. So it's all on the line for him. He can't afford to slip up.
What about Dennis McCann then? He's back on Friday, the 26th of March. Before we talk about his fight with Luis Moreno, he's been ordered by the board to fight Liam Davis for the English title. Is that a fight that you're looking at all?
Look, we'll take each one as it comes. At the moment, I wanted to get through his fight next week. If he gets through that, then we'll look at that and see where we go with it. But he's a tremendous young talent. From day one, as an amateur, I liked him. Certainly day one, I was very, very, very supportive, very up on him as a fighter. What I like about him, he's got a tremendous attitude. He's constantly in the gym, constantly training. And it's not like the gym's across the road from him. He has a lot of travelling to get to the gym, get to Alan's gym. And he goes all over the place sparring. He was up in Liverpool, I think, a couple of weeks or last week, sparring up there. So that tells you his commitment to the sport and tells you how much he wants it. So for me, anybody who's got that attitude, we're going to get behind him all the way. And he's got that. He's got that winner. That you meet some people who have got winner written all over him. He's got that attitude, and I really do fancy him to go on and do big things.
Yeah, he does seem to have that about him. He's married, he's settled down, he speaks well, he talks about investments and getting properties and things like that. It doesn't feel like someone who's going to fall away.
Well, I hope not. We've seen plenty of young stars come in the game. I can think of a few names I won't mention at the moment who we really were banging on about, who basically, ruined their own careers, went off the rails, didn't act professionally, and were the architects of their own downfall. He's not like that. As you say, he's got his head screwed on. if he gets beat, he's going to get beat by a good fighter. That's what will happen with him. I mean, listen, that happens in boxing. You can only do your best, and he's one of those guys who will always do his best because he sees this as obviously it's his way of earning a living, but he sees this as a way of securing his future too. And he wants to get into property and make sure that he retires from the sport. Him and his family financially secure. You couldn't have a better attitude than he's got.
Yeah, another fighter with a great attitude, David Adelaide. I know you're a fan. I know you made sure you got his signature because there was a few people interested in David Adelaide when he turned pro. He's back on Friday, the 26th of March. What have you made of his career so far?
Look, he's done everything that he's been asked of. He was obviously a novice coming in, and he's done everything. And you can see how, at times, he's been over-enthusiastic in the ring. Once he settles down a bit, as the fights, the durations of the fights get longer, you'll see him planting his feet more, and you'll see a much, much better fighter. I can see what he's got there, and I really, really do rate him. But I don't want to be throwing him in the deep end yet. He's still got to learn. He's got a lot of learning to do. It's not about, it's not a peeing contest. You've got to start thinking about a career. And for me, it's bringing him through, making the right moves at the right time. But everything he's up to now, he's done perfectly.
I think you've got a job on your hands with him because he, from speaking to him, he is a man in a rush. And you follow his social media feed and he's talking about, I want to fight Nathan Gorman and things like that. And Gorman's, he's much more experienced at this point. But how are you going to sort of control that and tell him, pace yourself?
I will control it. And, he does that. You've got to remember, he's been, for the last 18 months, maybe 2 years now, he's been sparring with Anthony Joshua, he's been sparring with Tyson, he's been sparring with all the guys, I think Chizoras, and, all the guys who are, solid pros, world champions and so forth. He was Tyson's chief sparring partner out of the States. So for me, for him, being there and working with these guys, it obviously is a confidence lifter for him. And he's obviously learning from them. But I temper all that because it's making the right moves at the right time. And that's what we'll do with him.
And what about Saturday, the 27th of March, Willie Hutchinson against Lennox Clark? Talking about showing the world what you've got. What an opportunity for Willie Hutchinson to do that against Lennox Clark. Look,
it is, and it's a tough fight. It's a very tough fight. It's a very competitive fight. And I think that the fans could be in for a treat with it. But I looked at Willie, I think you sent me that photograph of him, that his last fight, look at it now, he looks ripped.
Yeah.
So he's obviously been working very hard in the gym, again with Dominic. I really do rate him. I am excited about him and what he can achieve. And this is going to be a milestone for him, this fight, because he's going to be with a very competitive guy. He's fighting for the British title, very competitive guy in Lennox, and I think that he will bring the best out of it. If he's as good as I think he is, then he'll come through this, and by the end of the year, he'll be involved in some big fights. But this is a test. This is a big test. I compare him. He reminds me of a young Joe Calzaghe. And I know people say, "Oh, what are you talking about?" Remember, when Joe was young, nobody rarely had a good thing to say about it. He became an overnight sensation when he beat Jeff Lacey, and I stayed with him all the way through. I felt what he could do. He looked good, very good at one stage. And then he had a couple of bad foots, but he reminds me of him. He's got fast hands. He throws a great variety of punches, and once he's in the ring, he's a monster.
Well, this is a huge step up in class. If you look at Willie, he's not boxed that many people with winning records. He's not boxed that many rounds. He's 22 years old. Lennox Clark has only lost once on a split decision to Lerone Richards. Was there any sort of hesitation in taking this fight? Maybe just slowing it down a bit, maybe going another route?
There was, but sometimes you've got to roll the dice. And I don't mean that sort of like it's a gamble, but you sort of think to yourself, look, is he as good as I think he is? If he is, and remember, he's got a tremendous amateur pedigree. Tremendous pedigree as an amateur. So looking at that, and you're thinking at the level of the guys he fought with to win that title, you've got to think, he's had some very good quality amateur experience. So for me, look, he's in there now. We can't change it. The fight's there. We're going to see on the night whether it's the right decision or not. If it's the wrong decision, it's down to me.
Well, it's certainly, if he does come up short, it certainly won't be for not being in great shape. As you said, that picture, you can tell.
Well, and again, if you think about it, we had a little bit of a situation when, is he going to be a light heavyweight or is he going to be a super middleweight? That went on for a couple of fights. And so we're making matches and it was like, we're not sure what he's going to be more comfortable with, but obviously he's comfortable at the weight now.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about Louis Lin? He's 8-0 now. He's challenging for his first title. What have you made of Louis Lin so far?
I love him. I really do rate him. He's fighting a Spanish kid, Perez. It's a good fight for him. And I really do like what he's done up to shit. As you say, 8-0, undefeated, and they've done a good job with him. Done a very good job. So let's hope he sparkles on the night. Let's
hope so. He's amongst that bank of talent at the Peacock Gym. Denzel, Bentley, Chris Bork.
Yeah. He's exciting. He's an exciting little fighter.
Nathan Gorman's back. He's fighting Pavel Sauer now, who's shared the ring with Hughie Fury in the past, Filip Hrgovic. Is there a bit of pressure on Gorman to make sure he does a similar job?
Look, there is pressure on him. His last fight he had was in December, and he boxed extremely well, but he came in heavy. He was carrying a lot of excess flesh on him. Now, he promised me he'd come in light, obviously coming much lighter for this fight, and I hope that's going to be the case. He's a good quality operator. He's a very, very good quality, quality boxer, smart, and there is pressure on him, so he's got to look good. He's got to come through this and look good.
Mark Chamberlain takes on Jordan Ellison. Now, Mark Chamberlain, and again, forgive me if I'm getting ahead of myself. He looks like a hell of a talent, but I'm looking at mutual opponents here. Jordan Ellison was stopped by Sam Noakes, another lightweight that we've got. Is there a bit of, Mark Chamberlain surely has to stop him as well, right?
Well, if I was Mark Chamberlain, I would want him to make a statement. But I don't want him to go there just looking for a big punch and chasing around, trying to knock him out. I want to see him go out there and do it professionally, get behind his jab and break him down and do it. But you're right, there is that pressure on him. But he's a good fighter, Mark. He's a good. Do you know he kept saying just before his last fight, Harry wanted he stepped up, asking us to step him up. So he slowed down. We'll do it. We'll do it when the time's right. I think he's an exceptional young fighter. And again, this is this is a bit of a benchmark to see how he is compared with the other guys.
It feels like we've got tremendous talent. Young talent. You see some of these guys like Mark Chamberlain, he's at 135 pounds. Sam Noakes, 135 pounds. Amar Akbar, who we saw recently, he's got amateur history with Sam Noakes as well. This feels like in a few years' time, we got some monster fights.
Of course, and that's what I've always done as a promoter. Let's get the fight, let's get the public to see them, get to know them, and we can build them into being big fights, providing they keep winning. I'm up for that. It's not like we haven't done it before. We're constantly doing it.
What about Ethan James, Commonwealth Youth Gold medalist? He's back. This is his fourth fight. Now, he hasn't had any stoppages yet. Does that start playing on a fighter's mind?
No, not at all. Sometimes it takes fighters. They have to have, some fighters. You can look at them and you think, they can. If they're naturally big bangers, they'll take them out. But some fighters need time to break it down. I think you'll find. I'm just changing the subject. Like look at George Davey. When George Davey starts doing 8 rounds, 6 and 8 rounds, you'll see him stopping people. You stand on me. You'll see he's a quality young operator. You'll see him doing it. And it may be the same with Ethan. So, he's got this fight, I want him to just win. All I want him to do at this stage of the game is how you win. Look good doing it and learning. You keep learning, you get yourself nicer racks to punch, eventually the stoppages come.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for man strength. Some of these kids coming through, they've only ever fought kids, and now suddenly they're fighting men.
Yeah, correct. That's right. And some of you're absolutely right. And it's getting that man's strength. But it's patience. It's all about patience. You've got to take your time. It's all about patience, no rush. There's no rush at all. We've got great main events, and these guys on the undercard can get some experience, be seen, and get some valuable experience. And then eventually they'll top the cards, and they will be stepped up as to who the opposition is. That's what it's about.
The circle of boxing life, huh?
Yeah, that's what it is.
So a couple of debuts as well on March 27th. Umar Khan, who is a cousin of Hamza Shiraz, little super bantamweight. Have you seen much of him?
I haven't, but I'm looking forward to. And the fact is, if he's as good as his cousin, we'll be delighted with him, won't we? Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. He's been highly recommended by our team Shiraz. So fingers crossed he does the business.
Well, there you go. And the other one is Stephen Denton. Now, this guy, he's a 6'6" cruiserweight. The guy's a monster from what I've seen across his social media. I haven't met him yet, but goodness me.
I love him. He's a big guy, obviously, and I've seen a couple of knockouts as an act that he's done as an amateur. So it'll be exciting, that's for sure. It'll be exciting. So I'm looking forward to his debut too.
He's turning pro, I think he's 29. If he's not, he's 28, 29, sort of late 20s. Will there be a bit of a rush to progress him?
No, because I don't think that's how it should be. You know, it depends how he looks. You know, if he comes out and he's looking quite, we're certainly not going to find out in one fight, but after a few fights, we see it. And if he's comfortable, we feel we can move him a little bit quicker, we'll do it. But it's how he looks first. I'm not going to say, right, in 5 fights, you're going to be fighting for this title or whatever. Let's see how he looks. And if he looks, if he's as good as as we're being advised he is, then it shouldn't be a problem, should it? Stepping him up.
Shouldn't be a problem. Well, Frank, before I let you go, a few other bits just to catch up on. There's a comment from David Hay about Tyson Fury. He said that he thinks Tyson Fury is underestimating Anthony Joshua, and that if he goes in with the same mindset, same aggressive mindset and style against Joshua that he did against Wilder, he will come unstuck. What says you?
Look, he never underestimates anybody. Don't worry about that. He's a consummate professional as far as as he's concerned. Definitely will not be underestimated. But if you remember the last fight Tyson had, I said he'd stop him. He stopped Wilder, and I said that he needs to beat him. He needs to go and actually put him on the back foot and do it. And I think he needs to do the same thing with AJ. I think he needs to go and he's a counter puncher anyway, Tyson. But I think he needs to just back him up. He's not good fighting back, go on the back foot, Joshua. I disagree with David, and I'm not going to say he hasn't been right in the past, and I've been wrong. But for this one, I think Tyson Fury to fight Joshua, I think he's got to just jump on him as soon as that first bell goes.
It feels like from the news that came out over the weekend, there was a lot of stories there about it's signed, etc., and we're nearly there, but then there's no date and location. It feels like there's a bit of a ticking clock to get this sorted. Are you guys feeling that pressure at all in terms of the days are going down? You need to get this fight over the line.
Well, I don't want to be putting pressure on ourselves. That's why the idea was that we would announce it when we announce it with the venue, etc. Anyway, it's past that now. That's gone. So it's out there, and we're all working hard now to deliver a venue on a date that suits. But the problem that all of us, collectively, the promoters, having in this is obviously the COVID situation. And until we know what travel restrictions are going to be, until we know if it's abroad, if it's in another country, until we know what their position is going to be is regarding crowds and travel and so forth. It's a little bit, we're a little bit up in the air. So we're all working hard, as I say, to make it happen, and hopefully we'll have an announcement soon. I'd like to put it on in the UK. That's where that's where it should be. But obviously, if these big offers come in from abroad, then that's the place. That's where it's going to wind up being.
Is there a danger if it doesn't happen next? It just doesn't happen.
No, I think that fight will happen. It's got to happen this year, though. It's got to happen this year.
Another thing I was thinking about, Frank. And this was based on a conversation I heard about Canelo Alvarez maybe becoming the best Mexican of all time. Yeah, that may or may not be the case, but is there a route for a modern fighter like Tyson Fury to go on and become and be considered the best heavyweight ever? Is it even possible to do that?
Well, look, you've got to look at its eras, isn't it? You know, you look at the eras down the years, and you look at all the great heavyweight champions, great heavyweight fighters. He's done everything that's been asked of him. You know, he went to Germany. He beat the guy who, for 10 years, who was roughly 10 years in Klitschko, went in there as an underdog, a big underdog over there, and just took him to school, boxing lesson in the other guy's backyard. He went to the States twice and fought Wilder, who was considered the hardest punching heavyweight statistically ever, and certainly the hardest punching heavyweight in the last 30 odd years, no doubt about that. And got robbed in the first fight. He won that first fight. Got off the floor twice and still won him. Got robbed. And the second fight emphatically destroyed him. So how many guys have done that, going to the other guy's backyard? Didn't happen in the UK. He went to Germany, he went to the States. So you look at that, and then you look at, you know, he's fighting Joshua, becomes the first guy to ever unify the 4 belts. That's a massive achievement. And for me, you look at fighters and think, how would they be in this generation? You know, as an old guy, a lot of times I think, well, if this fellow was around, like Marvin Hagler, who obviously we'll talk about in a moment, you'd say, what would he be in this generation? What would he do? You know, well, how would Alvarez do with him? Or Canelo do with, how would he you know, who would win that one? Mm-hmm. For me, it'd be Hagler all day long. But you look at those things. But I think with Tyson, he's a fighter who, with any generation, would be there, be in the top couple in any generation. And remember, he's not. You look at his record; he's not been a massively active fighter over the years. And you know, the next couple of years, depending on who's around, he comes through the Joshua fights and moves on. You know, goes on and beats a couple of more guys. He'll be the best of his generation, without a doubt.
Usyk versus Joyce. There are a few tweets going around yesterday. Usyk came out and said, I think I've got it here. He said that they've made a counter offer and Joyce shouldn't think too highly of himself. And then you came back and said that, where is it? Where's this counter offer kind of thing? Where are we?
We made an offer to his management, a considerable, you know, a very lucrative offer. That's been made 100%. This counter offer, I've never seen it, and I'm his, you know, Queensberry are his promoters. He is under our promotional banner. I've never seen anything, and according to everybody else who's involved, his management side of that, they've never seen it. So I don't know what this guy's on about.
Do you think there's a hesitation from Usyk's side to take this fight?
I think they're waiting to see what happens with. I think they're sodding around waiting to see what happens with Tyson and AJ.
But Joyce is ready to go.
Yeah, he better be. But we'll see. He's going to be out anyway. He's going to be fighting sometime in May, early June. He'll be out.
What about Daniel Dubois? I know you guys were all in a meeting the other day. Martin Bowers, Dubois, Daniel's dad as well. What came of that meeting?
Well, there's discussions over various things, and there's a few things that got to be implemented and some meetings that have got to take place. Once that happens, we'll announce his date and opponent, but we're all good to go. And
the training situation, is it what we're led to believe with Mark Tibbs? Or?
His manager's got to talk to the potential trainers, and then they can work out what the deal is.
Boxing lost a great recently in Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Just your thoughts and any kind of tribute you want to give.
But you know, he was in that era when everybody fought everybody. There was no ducking. They all fought each other. And some of the most thrilling and exciting fights, and certainly I was privileged to see two of them, two of those exciting fights, the Hagler-Hearns fight, which was just breathtaking, and obviously Leonard and him. And besides all the other fights that, I attended some of the fights he did in San Remo and in Monte Carlo. So, You know, he was an outstanding fighter. You know, a real good quality operator. And I think Boxing Illustrated, which was in those days was like the magazine, they voted him as fighter of the decade, the 80s. And that was a bit of an accolade, but he deserved it. He was a fabulous fighter.
You touched on it earlier where we briefly talked about Canelo. How would Marvin Hagler get on in today's era?
Oh, he'd be the man. He'd be the man. No doubt about that in my mind. He was a special fighter. You know, Leonard at middleweight. You know, you look at those Tommy Hearns fighting at that weight today. I'd fancy Tommy Hearns. You know, with Tommy Hearns and Canelo, who would win? Will be a lot in it for me. You know, these were great fighters, and you know, I'm not saying Canelo's not a great fighter. Don't get me wrong. These were a special breed of fighters who none of them ducked each other, and there was none of that nonsense about making fights where they were dead at the weight. They made the fights at, you know, there was no catch weights. They made the fights at the weight. There was no super middleweight title back then. You know, you fought a middleweight. So if you struggled, you had to go up to light heavy. And the welterweights had to go, you know, so that's how it was.
Yeah, great fighter from a great era. And yeah, rest in peace, Marvin Hagler. Well, Frank, I think I've taken enough of your time today. Is there anything final you want to add ahead of these shows coming up?
Well, we've got a show in May that we're working on at the moment, and hopefully we'll get Sonny Edwards into a really good fight, and we'll be announcing that soon. Working hard on it, very hard on it. We're good, all good. Lots of things happening.
All good. Can't wait. All right. Cheers, Frank. Nice speaking to you today. Thanks for joining me on the Lowdown, and I'll see you soon.
You look after yourself, mate. See you soon.